And welcome back. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and you are watching Creative Thinkers. And today we have another special guest as always. His name is George Yapor. He is from Popular Mattress. So George, I wanted to welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure because we always like to talk to individuals who have a lot of interesting stories to tell us. So I always try to start by asking individuals where they're from, because are you a native El Pasoan?
Yeah, I sure am. All my life, born and raised.
Okay, and then, but your family actually came from another place. Can you explain?
My father was born in Chihuahua. My grandmother, my grandfather came from Lebanon, met my grandmother in Chihuahua. So my father was born there, and then he came to El Paso when he was 15 years old. Actually, himself and 7 siblings.
Oh, wow.
As they, my grandfather wanted them all to go to school here.
Okay.
So they had a large apartment on Copia and Altura, and that's where he started making mattresses also at the same time in the basement.
And from there, you guys moved somewhere else, right?
Yeah, that was from 39 to 49, we were at Copia. It was him and his 2 sisters did the sewing, and he made, back then it was just cotton mattresses. He couldn't get steel because of the war.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And so they're making cotton mattresses, and another one called colchonetas. They were small little pads that you could put on the floor or put on another mattress, and it'd give you a little bit of comfort.
Is that the equivalent to the memory foam toppers that we have today? Kind of?
You know, it probably would be. It'd probably be a fluffy, it sure would be. That's a good question.
So it's interesting that your father came over with the knowledge to make mattresses?
Well, his father, my grandfather, made mattresses in Chihuahua.
Okay.
He had a small little factory, same what my dad had. It was just not real large, but he made mattresses down there also. So my pop picked it up from his father.
Right.
And I picked it up from my father.
And it was just kind of like a family thing that kept going and going and
Sure
going.
is.
But I think that one of the things that we spoke about was that you were one of the innovators, I guess. Innovators in the sense that you were the one that kind of helped everything grow and grow and grow. Because sometimes it's very difficult to get a business going. It may be very, very stable, but how do you get it to that next level? Do you think that part of that was an element of creativity that helped you get to that next level? How does this idea of creativity incorporate to what you did?
2 things. My father used to sell some of the furniture stores here in El Paso in the late 60s. And I used to deliver, set it up very nice, but they'd bring one back that it was damaged, and my father was the type that just go ahead and give them a new one. And that frustrated me to begin with. Then he did renovating.
Right.
Where he'd pick up your mattress at home, he'd go give you an estimate, we'd bring it back in, we'd put a new cover, put new padding, and then we'd take it back to him. Well, what frustrated me is that I had to go to them, come back and wait. Then I had, if they wanted it, then they'd call me, and I'd have to go to them again to pick it up.
Oh, okay.
Then I'd have to bring it back, and then I'd have to take it over. So I told my dad to make me samples, little samples of new mattresses. So I had 2 little samples with me. And what I started doing is I started selling them a new mattress for themselves and renovating their old one and putting in another room for one of their children or one another family member.
Oh, okay.
So that worked about 50% of the time. So every stop, every quote, we were able to get a higher dollar out of it, and it would actually pay for everything that cost on the renovation. So those cost us nothing, and then we made the profit off the mattress.
Wow.
So between the furniture stores, and one time I was delivering some cotton mattresses to Favens, and there was 12 mattresses in there, and I asked my dad, how much you gonna make on this? He said about $12, $14, and that was about it. Some of the furniture stores made us tag our mattresses at $9.99, at $99. And then they'd sell it at $99, and we'd sell it to them for $29.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that margin just, it bothered me a lot. So it took a couple of years of begging my father to let me open my first store and go factory direct, straight to the public.
And you were the only one doing that at that time?
I was the only one. No, for about 8 or 9 years, nobody was doing sleep shop business. It was just the big, strong stores like Popular, American Furniture, Union, and Welch, Furniture Warehouse, and they were huge, and they dominated the city.
But the good thing at that point was that you were also selling to them. I assume.
I stopped them immediately.
Oh, wow.
That was, I guess, my revenge.
They had to get their product from somewhere else now,
you know,
because you were selling direct.
From the big national boys, buying from them. So what it did is it helped, and we grew tremendously. I mean, the first year, and I knew nothing about it. I was scared. You know, I was very valiant when I'm talking about it, but then you actually have to do it, and you get kind of scared inside. And but luckily, I learned. Just went to high school, but I learned from my customers, asking them about what they need, what their health needs are, how I can improve. Do they like the color of the mattress? Do they like the feel?
Oh, okay.
So my customers were my education, and I learned from there. But the first year, I doubled what he did in '69.
Oh my gosh.
And in the second year, we doubled what we did, double what I'd done already in 1970. So open on the 1972, I moved into a store from 1,000 feet to 3,000 feet. And I moved my father from the backyard of his house to an 8,000 square foot factory.
Oh, wow. In 2 years.
In 2 years. And then from there, in '74, I was the first one in Chula Vista Mall, first local.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had to beg to get in there because they didn't want a mattress store going into the premier mall. But we were able to do that, and that store was highly, highly successful.
Wow.
So from there, I built the factory showroom on the freeway for 24,000 square feet.
That's the one that's still there right now.
No, that's further one. That's where the Guitar Center is now.
Oh,
that
okay,
was my
okay,
building.
okay.
Now we're on the corner of Hawkins and 19. The mall did a phenomenal amount of business for us. And what was interesting is my Northeast store didn't pick up on business, but the Chula Vista Mall store was selling 15 times the amount that the Northeast store is. So one time I was talking to a colonel, and I started asking him why, and he says, traditionally, there's always a strip wherever the military is that kind of takes advantage of the people. They charge them too much, or it's inferior product. So in the mall, you're with national companies, and we feel secure with you. And so you're no longer a local, you're just another store with a Dillard's, a Sears, a Penny's.
Right.
So from '76 in the mall, I'd opened stores in between there. I'd opened on the Far East on Zaragoza. But the mall enabled me to buy the corner of Hawkins and I-10.
Wow.
And that is 54,000 square feet. And
bigger even than the original warehouse.
Yeah, the original, my pop started with 600 feet. So we went from 600 feet to 54,000 feet. And don't forgive my fingers.
Yeah. You just keep telling your story.
So it was 10 years. In 10 years, we went from 600 square feet and a 1,000 square foot store to a 54,000 square foot building. 18,000 of it was factory. The rest was showroom. And I was able to rent buildings in my building, which paid for my rent. So I was there rent free pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And one of the things that I find interesting about what you've done is just the way that you actually maneuvered your way into doing this. And I feel that one of the things that allows you to do that is the way that you think outside the box. Because if you were within the box, I feel, then you would still be selling to the big box stores, but you felt, I can achieve this. What was it that propelled you to do that? There must have been a way of thinking in your mind that allowed you to do that. Can you explain?
Well, part of it was ignorance. I didn't know the difference. I really didn't know the difference.
So you believed that you could do it, therefore you did it.
Once I got going and rolling, I loved my customers. I mean, they were tremendous people, and they, like I say, they were my education. Then I had wonderful employees. That's what got me to where I'm at right now. Is they were terrific. They worked hard. They were supportive, and I got to give them a lot of credit for growing also. But mostly, even though I didn't have the education, I had the passion and I had the vision.
Right.
And the passion is the one that probably pushed me hard, because at that time it was not easy, but because I was the only one, I was able to move quicker. And by itself, it just started growing. One customer would tell another customer to another customer.
Right.
Now in '72, I brought in small bedroom sets.
So furniture as well.
Furniture.
Okay.
And the way I had to go through the trash cans of American Furniture and the Popular to find out the name of companies.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and dummy me, I'm just little Georgia Ford Popular Mattress. I want to buy furniture. And they'd laugh, you know, how many sets can you buy? So I can buy 4 a month, you know, and they're selling hundreds.
To these
to
other
the big
companies,
guys.
right?
So I found distributors that would sell me. And there again, I would sell them at lower cost. And the bedroom furniture would pay for my rent.
Oh,
so everything
okay.
we made on mattresses was clear, or no cost against them. And I just grew with the city. In the 70s, El Paso's always been about a year behind the bigger cities. So it was growing. People were changing. We barely got our first steakhouse in 70. Before that, they had
Which
a
one
private.
was that? I don't even remember.
It was the Montana Mining.
Oh, I think I do remember that.
and then,
That's when I was a little wee kid.
That's right. Miguel's, and then they had Harrigan's. There were several discos that opened. Then started Cielo Vista Mall is the one that broke loose and broke the city. Because before that we had the Popular, which was a very good department store, and the White House.
Right.
But the mall came in offering us things that we never saw before, stores we've never seen before. And it was a beautiful big place. So from there, if you look, that was in 74, you look how the Gateway on Viscount developed, McRae developed, Yarborough, Walmart started coming in.
Right.
We were all in that area, and from across the street, I have Walmart, I have Sam's, I had Sears, I had Penny's, Dillard's, and Rhodes. And I can't explain why. It just kept coming.
Yeah.
And it was exciting just to try new things and to do new things.
And that's always, I think, the most important thing, is to try new things, but also to involve others in those new things. And that's another thing that you mentioned that you did in the past, was that you actually worked with the banking system. If you can explain that a little bit, but with the banking system in order to allow other business entrepreneurs to flourish as well. Can you explain?
Well, what I was doing, I had 2 dear friends that were attorneys. And there's a lot of stores on Alameda or upholstery shops, car lots, that the big banks wouldn't touch.
Why is that, first of all?
It was easier to go after one big one than 10 little ones, or 15 little ones, or 20 little ones. So they service this one, they don't have to service 15 little ones.
Okay.
But through the SBO, we had a real progressive guy there named Fernie Villalobos. And we did friends that did a Dunkin' Donuts, upholstery, car lots, little small stores, some that sold fruit and vegetables, little restaurants that needed to grow. In the short period that we did it, between 72 and 76, we did over 200 SBA loans.
For El Paso, that's a lot.
It was. And but the lawyers were excellent, because they just did it out of the kindness of the heart, because it takes almost as much time to put together a little loan.
Right.
And the bigger ones it takes the accountants and getting in there and see their balance sheets. But and then to get our banks to approve them.
Right.
But with SBA, the banks were guaranteed 75% of the loan.
Automatically.
Automatically. So they were really out only 25%.
Right.
So it was a sweet deal for them, and we got a lot of people, their businesses going. And
how important was that for you? What did you gain from it? Because obviously you weren't really making money, because that was a separate entity. What did you gain by it, and why was it so important at that juncture?
It was a joy. It was really a joy. I guess my dad started, and I started with nothing. I mean, he was doing...
Was it payback to a certain degree?
You know, looking at it, I'm getting goosebumps right now if you think about it, and that's 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
They were great people to begin with. They were hard workers, and they needed help. And that's the main thing. I was available. I had the connections, and I had the group of people with the lawyers, and starting working in SBA. And to see the joy of being able to get a loan, because it was intimidating. I mean,
Right.
I got an upholstery shop and having to go to a bank, big bank. The banks alone are intimidating
Right,
for a
right,
lot of people.
right.
But I found a lot of...
It's like a David and Goliath thing going
exactly,
on, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were the mediator kind of for these individuals.
Yes, Yeah, we'd go in and we'd present the loan for them. I mean, they'd go in with us,
beautiful.
but we'd go to the bank and present the loan. And some banks were more interested in helping us, and others didn't want to deal with us at all.
They wanted the big fish.
They wanted the big fish. Yeah.
Because I think you're right. If it's going to take me, a week to service this loan, and there's going to be this amount, and it's going to take me a week to service the other one, and we're talking multi-million dollars, why would you even want to service the other one?
That's right.
Which is very, very true. But I think it's more gratifying. And maybe that's one of the reasons why you did it.
Absolutely. It was gratifying, and it was good to see them grow too. We grew with nothing. I mean, my mom lent me $500. My dad put mattresses in the store. And my grandfather let me 3 months rent.
That's how you started.
That's how I started. I had to beg, borrow, and steal from all of them. But
look at what you were able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And for me, anyways, just by looking at you, because we met actually by accident, right?
Sure did. Yeah.
I'm walking through this home show, just kind of walking around, meeting people, and I run into you. Everybody knows who you are locally, for sure. And I was like, wow. We immediately hit it off and started talking about all kinds of things. So I said, I got to get you down. We got to talk. But in you, I see the drive of being able to accomplish these things. How important for you is it that others also gain that spark?
Very.
Why?
And I really can't put a handle on it. I guess my pop was a very humble man.
Mm-hmm.
And things he would tell me is, if you're going to make a mattress, even for the least expensive ones, those people can only afford so much, but you give them 10-15% more of a mattress, because they're buying in the store. Maybe they'll charge them more money for less mattress, and we were giving them more mattress for less money. And his dream was always that everybody in the country should have a house. He was brilliant with numbers. He'd sit there later on and do the federal budget. I mean,
Oh, wow.
my dad wanted just to help anybody he could. A little story, he used to collect, and I used to go with him, he used to collect 25 cents or 15 cents for some of these mattresses in the 50s and 40s.
What do you mean collect?
What he'd do is he'd lend them on credit. We'd go in and sell you a cotton mattress for $15. They'd give me $1 down, and he'd go pick up every Saturday. He'd pick up whatever they wanted to give him.
Oh, okay.
And one time I asked him, this man hadn't paid him. It's the third time we'd been there, and the man hadn't paid him. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, let me just tell you, son, if this man could pay me, he would pay me. But he must be having troubles, because he's an honest man and he's always kept his word. So I'm going to do nothing and wait, and that's it. And so that type of philosophy, watching the way my dad was other people and other salesmen, and he helped as much as he could wherever he could. So I got it from him and his style. My mom was a very humble person also. So I had great parents that were just good parents. What can I say? So it felt good, and it just came automatic. I wasn't going to say, I'm going to do this. We just started doing it, and just like my business, it started blossoming. And
don't you agree that when people, and this isn't 100%, but when people get that opportunity, they can also blossom? And when they blossom, then they're able to help others. So it's almost like you're passing it forward to a certain degree.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that came from influences other than your family as well? Did you have any other mentors?
I had an uncle he had multiple businesses. He's very successful. And he had a heart of gold also.
Oh, that's fantastic.
He really did. I mean, he was in the candy, cigarette, all kinds of businesses. And people that couldn't afford a certain amount, they'd go up and see him in his office and say, he'd give them the 20% off, or he'd give them half off, because he knew they were struggling. This is the type of guy he was. I got in a bind one time, and I was behind on the banks, and my sister called my uncle. So he called me and he asked, how am I doing? I said, I'm doing great. He said, everything okay? I said, everything's fine. He said, well, I want to talk to you.
He already knew the inside story.
He already knew it. So I went in there, and he's got, you're a damn liar, he said. Things aren't good for you. Well, how much do you need? I said, well, who talked to you? He said, my sister talked to me. Your sister talked to me. And I told him I need $100,000.
Wow.
He turned around, he wrote a check, turned around and gave it to me. And I said, I can't afford to pay you back. He said, you pay me when you can pay me. And that was the end of it. I mean, he had the money.
Uh-huh.
But it was, do you want me to sign anything? He said, you're going to pay me? And I said, yes. He said, then we're not going to sign anything. You sign it and you can't pay me. What's the big difference, you know?
Absolutely.
You're either going to pay me or you're not going to pay me, if I have a contract or not.
Yeah, that's true. I've run into situations like that, very, very similar. But, you know, one of the things that I also see from you is that you have this very strong element of integrity to you. Do you feel that that's something that can be passed on to others?
I think it can. I think if the people want it or know it, but couldn't do it, and they get the opportunity, they'll pass it on. I'd say 85, 90% of the people. You get the other 10% that all of a sudden money goes through their head, and you know they become a little bit more than other people. But the majority of them will help people. They really will, especially if they were helped.
Absolutely, which is something that's interesting to me because I have received a lot of help from many people depending on my situation, depending on the time of my life. And I myself have also had businesses, and I think that building a community is very important. That's what I try to do through this show, is try to allow people to learn from individuals like yourself. So there's a lot of knowledge that can be gained from an individual that has been successful, especially in this city. And my question is, how difficult do you think that it is for individuals coming from different backgrounds for them to succeed? Because that's something that you kind of did.
Back then, it was tough for even myself. We got turned down one time by 9 banks.
Wow.
To get my first loan. And my buddy, the lawyer, he said, why are you depressed? I said, well, I mean, after
Why
9
not?
times, why not? You know?
Right.
And he says, do you know how many banks there are in El Paso? He said, no. We got 31 to go.
Oh, wow.
Between savings loans and credit unions. And he had that kind of attitude. Everything went off his back. And this guy, so next on the 11th try, we got the loan. But thanks to my friends who helped me not get discouraged, because I was discouraged. And let me tell you, like I was telling you earlier, it sounds good, everything I did, but I had a lot of mistakes along the way, a lot of them. Some pretty big mistakes, and you have to learn from them and keep going. Many times I got depressed, just wanted to give everything up.
Right.
But, so you got to blend success with the failures. And like I was telling you earlier, I told my daughter, you know, wisdom comes from failure a lot of times. Not all the times. It comes from experience. But you either become better or you become bitter. That's true. That's the choice you have. And I guess the way my father struggled, and he provided for us, and I saw my uncle, you know, my dad are selling house to house. And my uncle started off by selling out of the back of a pickup truck.
To become that successful.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
What do you have in the present that you're working on? Because are you a great part of what Popular Mattress is still? Have you kind of gone back to into the bleachers a little bit? What's going on?
About 8 years ago, I transferred the business to my daughter and my son-in-law.
Okay.
And I still was running the factory. But I've had some health problems. So in 2000, I closed the factory. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start a little small business. And I'm going to specialize in RVs and semi-trucks.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, people spend $100,000, $500,000 in an RV, and it comes with a very inferior mattress.
Oh, so it's all based on the mattress still, huh?
Yeah, and that's it. And the trucks, the same thing. I feel sorry for those truckers. The mattresses that they get in there are very inferior. So I'm just gonna specialize on better mattresses for those 2 categories. It's not gonna be a big business. I'm gonna work by appointment only. That way I can spend more time with each customer. And at my age too, I don't wanna be in a store for 10 hours a day.
Right, right.
So it's working. One other area that I didn't mention to you is that we grew is we did hotels.
Okay.
We did hospitals. I did the Sleep Disorder Center for Providence, Del Sol, did the Radisson, the Wyndham, the Hilton. We did several universities, fire departments, even to the nurses area in the schools. Made some for Juan Gabriel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a house that he built over in Canotillo, and he had like a tri-level bed from 3 different levels,
Coming cascading down, right? You know what's interesting is you are the second person that I interview that had a contact in some way with Juan Gabriel, which is very, very interesting. One of the questions that I always ask my guests is, what kind of advice do you have for our general public? It can be any type. It's always important for us to learn from you. What can you teach us?
Well, on a business point of view, you always take care of your customers, period. Even if they're wrong, and you're going to get some customers that abuse the system, you just fix it. And you're in business, they're the ones that put you there in business. And in some stores, they get all excited and they sell them, but to take care of it afterwards, they don't do the follow-up. I mean, they really got your money. If you're in business, I was very fortunate to have good employees. And if you have good employees, you pay them well. And they will grow for you. And they become part of a family. But the main thing, you got to enjoy what you're doing. You really do. I know some people have to work on certain specific jobs to feed their family and to grow.
Correct.
But for yourself, you need to love what you're doing. You need to enjoy it. That'll let you live longer. You may not make as much, but it'll be better for your family, better for you. And that's what I can give them right now, is just enjoy what they're doing.
So what I think what you're saying is probably just be happy.
Yeah.
And that will allow you to live a nice, full life.
It sure will. It sure will.
And judging from what I've talked to you about and just seeing how you've been successful in life, I think you've done a very good job. I want to congratulate you on that.
Well, I've been
absolutely.
fortunate, been very fortunate. So I want to thank you for having me here.
No, it's been my pleasure, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time out to actually come here and give us a little bit of insight as to who you are. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank our audience. I want to thank you guys for joining us once again. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and you're watching Creative Thinkers. And if you guys want to email me, and you know somebody that's interesting that I could talk to, my email is mvalen31@epcc.edu, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you very much.